Morning, I'd like to call this work session of the Southampton Town Board to order on this second day of November 2023. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Supervisor Schneiderman,
From here.
Councilwoman McNamara,
Here.
Councilman Martell,
Here.
Councilman Bouvier,
Here.
Councilman Skiboom.
Present.
Just one time before the end of the year, we all say the
I
same.
already did. That would have happened 2 months ago.
We don't need
We did?
Yeah,
We had
I
one,
did.
or were you
I turned around and
unanimous?
said here, right, you know.
All right, we tend to vote
But
unanimously.
it should be
so
noticed that
Everything else is usually unanimous.
in the minutes, we are all in fact present.
Correct.
Yes.
It
I think
doesn't say here, it says present.
Yeah, I think you got me
So I
wrong, though.
say, for the informal meetings, like work sessions, I say here. For the formal ones, I say
Right.
present.
What?
At least,
Really bugs it.
I know.
that's my custom anyway. All right, so, regardless, we have the whole board here, and so we have more than a quorum. And we'll begin our work session agenda. The first item is guest housing at Golf at Bridge. Before we get started on this item, I believe Councilwoman McNamara wanted to recuse herself.
I did, in light of the fact that I've publicly stated that the principal owner of this golf course funded mailers attacking my character in an effort to influence the current election. I don't believe my comments on this matter would be perceived as impartial despite my objectivity, and for that reason, I will recuse myself.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman McNamara. All right, so we will begin, and Janice Shearer is here, and we have others here too. Claire Shea is here.
Good morning. I invited Claire Shea, Assistant Planning Director, and Jake Watkins is here on behalf of Golf Bridge, or the Bridge, to present to you what they're requesting, and then we'll go through, sort of what we're
Can you go
talking
through
about.
the, like, before we even get into the details of this? So, this is Golf at Bridge Golf Course up in Bridgehampton, Noyak area. The zoning there is, it's not a PDD, but what, a quip site?
It's the predecessor to PDD, which is called Quasi-Public Service Use District.
QPSUD.
And we call that QPSUD, QPSUD.
All right.
And that was repealed. There is no more QPSUD in the town. But
So-
golf courses were created using this planning tool back in the day.
So that was actually repealed even before we repealed the PDD.
They
correct?
they were repealed and replaced by the PDD,
Ah.
which then itself was not repealed, but just no longer accessible to people. So the QPSUD was truly repealed, gone.
So what, were there provisions made for
So-
existing quip suds in terms of
Not
how
the
to modify them?
way we would like them to be, not like the PDDs where we made allowances in there when you changed that. QPSUD, just the whole thing kind of went out the window, but there has to be some way to
Treat an existing.
treat it, and that we conferred with town attorney's office that the most logical way would be as a zoning amendment, because it is a zoning
So then this
in and of
become
itself.
a pre-existing non-conforming use? What, the zoning category it sits in doesn't exist, or?
That's a
Or
good
now
question.
becomes a commercial use
It's,
and residential?
it's not a pre-existing non-conforming use. It was permitted use in QPSUD, so I would not say it's pre-existing non-conforming, but we can follow that same,
Well, if the zoning
process.
category changes, right, so if something was conforming at a time, let's say it's a commercial zone and a commercial use, and later a town puts it in a residential zone, it then does become a pre-existing non-conforming. The only reason I ask this question is I just want to figure out how we treat changes to a
we
quip
would
site.
like to know that as
And so
well,
just-
and
Just for
we,
guidance, so like I know with a non-conforming use, you can be modified up to, I think, 50% expansion of a non-conforming use. But what are there parameters and guidelines for modifying a QPSUD?
well, here it says, in the QPSUD approval, the zoning for this parcel, It says, any additional accessory residential density, which one may argue a guest house is that, exceeding the proposed 20-lot PRD. So it was a cluster plan, a subdivision
Right.
that they did,
Yeah.
and Jake can talk better to it than I, and Claire as well. And it says, shall be subject to future town code amendment recommended by the planning board and approved by the town board.
Okay.
So that is where we get
So you
our,
actually have to create the
it was in
mechanism.
there, yeah, it says recommended and approved by the town board. Any additional density is subject to future town code amendment. That is a zoning code amendment, and that is why you have to elect to even consider it.
Right.
You have to say, okay, we want to consider it. You have a public hearing, and then you will go through the whole process. So it's a little tricky, but at least we have this guidance
There's
in the
some guidance,
QuipSet
yeah.
approval itself.
Right, that's important. So
Yes.
they are contemplating future changes and saying it's that the town board would make those changes
Yes,
by amending
yep.
the QuipSet. Okay.
Provided it doesn't fall within the set that you just described.
Any additional accessory residential density exceeding the proposed 20-lot PRD, which is what they designed and created,
Right.
the bridge got that
Oh, I do have
cluster
copies of this, I'm
subdivision.
sorry.
Yeah,
I
I'm
can-
sorry,
Yeah, that
my
would be helpful.
copies.
Was there, when the PDD was adopted,
It's on the
there was
second page.
Number
specific-
6.
When PDDs were adopted, there was a couple different important processes.
Yeah.
One, there was is there any more?
Yeah,
there's
more.
3 there.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
let me grab one too.
One page each.
Okay.
Just on the back side on number
So-
6.
So going back a second to PDDs, I think there were a number of provisions, but one, there was a community benefits provision that, the town would weigh the community benefits to see if they were sort of commensurate with the benefit to the applicant. There were other provisions like a supermajority vote that was required to.
Well, this
to the-
PRD you're talking about here.
The QuipSug is neither PRD.
A PRD is a
or-
type of subdivision.
Right.
So,
but I
and that's a
mean,
cluster.
What you're referencing here is PRD, so what currently exists.
Well, we
unless
knew
we
it
wanna
was
make an
zoned
amendment.
QuipSud, and the action was a subtype of subdivision, which was a golf course and houses.
So just,
Okay.
what my question was, is not this particular piece of paper on this particular QuipSud, but the QuipSud law itself. Did it have requirements for community benefits? Did it have requirements for supermajority votes? Did it
I
have,
don't think so.
the law that got repealed?
I would have to research that, but
So-
I don't know
okay.
off the top
Because
of
I
my
just,
head.
that would be helpful guidance in
Sure, we can look into
evaluating
that.
changes to a
See what that-
QuipSud.
I got my
Public
pen.
benefit.
Claire's taking notes. So that's fine. So maybe we can find out more from Jake Watkins here about what the bridge would like to do, what you're here today
Right,
to
I
ask
just wanted
about.
to have that as terms of like context for how we analyze what they're about to present.
And just so you know, we still have to do a whole report on this, so
Okay.
we will include that in there.
Okay.
And,
Jake.
thank you. My name is Jake Watkins. Yeah, yeah. I'm with Roger Ferris and Partners. We, one of the questions that we had too has to do, Jay, with what you were talking about as well.
I need one.
From our understanding,
Oh, you got one? Okay, thank you. Sorry. I didn't have
and
one.
just a really brief history, in '97, the town board approved the rezoning of the bridge property to QuipSud. That was in '97. Resolution number 82 of 1997, resolution 797, 1997. And it was codified in Article 22 in the town zoning code. And it allowed the town board to create a QuipSud in order to authorize development on a planned basis for uses which, although desirous or necessary to the town, might require large amounts of land. So that's why the QuipSud was created, essentially. It's a precursor to what was eventually created in its place. Although the town board repealed Article 22 in 2001, all existing QuipSuds still remain, as far as we know. And the town official zoning map continues to list the bridge property as a QuipSud. So it's not a non-conforming, pre-existing non-conforming use. It is still recognized and still zoned as a QuipSud. The local law does not specifically limit the QuipSud uses, and we're just looking through everything. And the underlying findings in the resolution describe the application as rezoning to enable the following. This is what was defined in very broad strokes: an 18-hole private golf course, clubhouse, practice area, and related accessory uses to the facilities. And there were two kind of areas that were designated as part of the larger QuipSUD. There was the golf course, which is what we're talking about specifically, and the accessory golf uses that are specified for that. And then there's the residential individual lots that were created as well. But we're only talking about the golf course portion of this. And it's the term related accessory uses and facilities was neither defined nor limited. And so over the past 25 years since QuipSUD was adopted, the town has treated the allowance for related accessory uses and facilities as a sort of a flexible term, covering a variety of accessory uses customarily found on golf courses. So originally, those uses contemplated the clubhouse and the practice area. And under this flexible term, there have been additional uses brought into the clubhouse: the pro shop, the golf learning center, tennis courts and pavilions, staff housing units, restrooms, maintenance facilities, maintenance storage. So over time, the town has allowed additional accessory uses purely related to the golf course. In terms of the proposal and what the bridge is looking to do, for many years, the bridge has been developing plans to construct a limited quantity of accessory member rooms, which could be occupied by members and guests for temporary stays. So this is specifically talks to, Janice, your point of increased density. The idea is that these are just for members that would only be using, and their guests that would already be using the clubhouse, so there isn't necessarily an increased density.
So member only.
Yeah,
And guests.
And guests, just
Yeah.
like a foursome is a lot of guests. The present plan set forth in the site plans that you have, and there are a couple pages to them. The plan shows that the bridge is proposing to construct 9 cottages. And we have 3 different areas designated around the 277
9
plus
separate
acres.
buildings or 9 units?
9 separate buildings, a total of 18 rooms, all within the designated golf course area. No new areas will be disturbed, and the project will remain within the approved clearing limits. The second page of this document shows an image. It's still in the works of what this can look like, but the idea is that they're small. They're 750 square feet each.
So
Each sort of cottage has 2 rooms associated with it, and then a small shared living space.
when you say 2 rooms, are they adjoining rooms or
Yeah,
are they
you can see
separate?
the last page sort of
Yeah.
has a preliminary
Okay.
plan for what it can look like.
I did see
So
it.
it has 3, each building has 3 units?
Each building has 2 rooms.
Oh, I see. Jack and Jill bed.
9 total units, each with 2 rooms, so it's a total of 18 rooms.
So 3 clusters, 2 sites on each one,
Yeah.
for not total 9 plus the extra 2.
That's right. And I think, I mean, in our mind, these clusters, the locations of them are flexible. This is still
Total of how many, 18 units?
18 rooms,
18 rooms? How many?
9 buildings,
About 13,500 square feet,
closer to 9,000 square feet, plus or minus.
that's 750 times
Yeah.
18.
But no, 750 for the 2 rooms,
Is it just,
Oh, but 2.
So
say
22.
say it again, how many buildings?
9 buildings.
9 buildings.
Times 2.
And each
Rooms.
I'm
building
gonna
has
do the math here with you.
9 buildings,
2
2
units
rooms.
per
So
building?
it's 9 buildings times 750, 6,750. And that's just the rooms, and there's some additional coverage for the decks and everything potentially.
6,750 is each
Is the
building?
total building area.
Looks like it has a patio out the front.
Have a
I mean,
patio out the front.
Per
or-
per
And this
building.
will be subject to IAs. and
Each
stuff
building
like
is
that.
750 square feet.
Each building with
Deep
2
deep water
units?
recharge.
Yeah,
So it's like
Right
300
there.
square feet a building?
Jay, check out the last page.
Yeah, it's
of
just
that.
2 bedrooms with a common living room area.
That's right,
Right,
that's
so
correct.
it's
yeah.
small.
It's small, it's discreet.
Okay.
Single story,
So this is a building, it's got 2 units with
That's
a
right.
shared bathroom? No.
uh,
No,
2,
each separate bathroom,
with a shared sort of living space in between.
living space.
And the design is to build it into the moraines on the property like you have here, or
Yeah,
they haven't
and
decided?
no, this is the design. It has a flat roof, a green roof. It's maintaining the sustainable kind of guidelines set up by the bridge from the onset, rain gardens, you know. It's discreet, it's low, it's small, it's
So
meant to blend in with the
The
property.
total square footage of construction, you said was like 7,000?
Yeah, about 7,000 plus or minus of interior space, and there'll be some additional patio space as well.
Okay.
I'll say that, so the bridge is proposing these rooms again just to be member rooms. And maintaining the idea of being accessory to the principal use of the golf course.
Are they gonna charge though for an overnight stay? I imagine it's not a free thing, right?
It's
So
on the
there's-
monthly.
I don't know how that.
But, okay, good.
But I think that there
there
will
would
be
be a-
appropriate conditions, covenants in place to make sure that the rooms will never be used as full residential dwelling units or by people outside the membership of the bridge.
So along with what you just said, if a member has guests over, could they stay here? Or are they required to play a round of golf? You said it's going to be connected to golfing.
That could be one of the conditions. I don't know how that would exactly play
Very
out. but
tough
if
for us to enforce that, but.
Yeah, and that's
who's-
kind of
who's
granular,
actually
but
staying?
it is for people to stay, to play golf.
That's the
and be
idea.
about,
I
you
mean,
know,
somebody,
it's
a
not
member stays there with their guest, or, you know, and then they go out and play around the next day was the idea genesis of this. So in total, given the numbers of the membership of the bridge and the number of spaces that we're talking about, the accommodations will be for no more than 10% of the club members at any one time. The rooms will not be available to the general public, and they won't be advertised as such. The rooms will not be available all year round. It'll only be the golfing season, May to October, April to October. The rooms will not have kitchen facilities. And they'll be, again, very limited by the covenants to be restricted to members and their guests. So that's very broadly what the bridge is asking for right now.
They're all one story, no basements.
No basements.
On a slab or just elevated slightly.
Yep.
On
And
a
the health
slab.
department requirements?
We'll have to go through every condition that site plan requires. So we'll have to have the septic system and utility
Is
supply.
this, I know Sabonic has some guest houses, right?
Yeah.
And that was part of the original approval, those guest houses.
That's right, and that's why Claire is here, because she has done the site plan for almost all of them.
Do
Ask
any,
her.
any
Ask her
other
anything.
golf courses, there's like 12 golf courses, any other ones have
I'm
guest
thinking.
houses?
I'm thinking,
The Hills.
National Golf Links of America.
the Hills is a subdivision,
Yeah.
Right.
It's-
so
okay.
that is part and parcel.
It's a-
Golf comes with the subdivision.
Right.
It's a golf course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of a different.
It's a lot
animal,
of
Golf course
but-
was accessory to the subdivision.
Yeah.
And this is the reverse.
But in this, the other, setting that one aside, which is not built, but the other ones, do we see this resort kind of use associated with them?
No, the only one is Savonic.
And could the
Sabonic
other
built it
ones-
into their PDD
Could the
approval.
other ones come
National.
in now and? 'cause
National
they-
too?
National does too.
We did recently, and I think we're being challenged in the courts.
National is pre-existing ones, right?
Yeah, 40 rooms
They
associated.
have guest rooms?
Yes, they do.
So National and Sabonic. have
But that was
this.
pre-existing to zoning.
That's in the
Yes,
main,
that
main
is-
building, right?
That is
I don't know for sure.
pre-existing.
Okay.
Yeah, that is pre-existing to zoning. That was not something the town board approved.
That's-
That was prior to 1953.
And that's the main building.
That's
That's
the
in the
main building.
clubhouse, it's rooms in the,
Yeah.
I know we recently
Pretty nice.
modified our code to allow staff housing, up to 50 units at a golf course,
Mhm.
recognizing the dearth of affordable housing in the area. And, you know, how much, particularly seasonal labor, these facilities generate. And I think we are being challenged, actually, in the courts on that. You know, adding a resort type of use that's a whole different, you know, category, right? So-
Well, I don't know if it's adding a resort use or just allowing them to have their members sleep over. so they can get to the tea
Right,
earlier.
right. So it's
I
not a
don't
resort
know,
in the
it's-
sense
he said it's
that-
not commercially
kitchen.
available, no
Right.
kitchen.
Right.
Right.
Well, these individuals, if they weren't here, would have to stay at somebody's house or rent a hotel room, right,
Yes.
to stay up.
And they
So-
probably do.
They probably do,
Yeah.
but there's just like not a lot of hotel capacity either.
Mhm.
So,
And this is not a huge number of units
Can-
compared to membership.
so
Right,
then can I
10%.
ask, because, you know, I've been through this with the Pine Barrens and the hills and things like that. This is in an aquifer area. This is a high point in a important aquifer area. And, you know, in these areas, we tend to not, we're pretty restrictive in terms of clearing. So are they allowed any additional clearing beyond this under our code? I see there's some conservation easement areas, but you would take some natural areas and you'd be adding impervious surfaces to them. Is that permitted?
That's a good question. So we've been doing the site plan for so long, but we've been double checking the clearing on the property as we complete a project. We ask for a survey at the ends and we do an inspection. But I think the last one was done, was probably Kyle's time, so it's been a couple of years, it's been 5 years.
Did the housing.
Yeah, but I didn't do an inspection
Yeah,
for
yeah,
the
fair enough.
compliance
You're
of the.
right,
So, I mean, and that
So-
could be corrected if,
But that's a
by
good question.
additional conservation easement areas or something like that.
It's not being proposed in a conservation easement area.
Right.
No, it's not.
But
So it
if
is in
it's-
an area that's not cleared, I mean, not vegetated
But-
and not needing,
But
you know.
in
we're
general,
not-
this is an APOD area, right? Aquifer Protection
Yes.
Oh,
Overlay
yes.
District.
Yes.
And
And
a
in those
deep water
areas, they're-
recharge area.
they're-
They
there's
have to meet all the standards.
Now,
And
maybe
absolutely.
they exceed those standards and can
Well,
do this.
same was with the hills, with IA systems and the requirement from the county in that regard too. We have to meet those
No matter what,
It looks
these
like
aren't
more-
gonna throw you into an STP. Your nitrogen standards are all under,
And
right?
nitrogen standards will be well under, and to Claire's point, we have done a number of projects. We actually have a surplus of allowable coverage, if you will, okay, I mean, right now, based on the current regulations.
All right, well, if that's the case, then you should be okay. I mean, one of the areas, cluster 2 is already in a cleared area. But cluster 1 and cluster 3 are these pockets of vegetated areas between fairways that, you know,
Yeah, any reason why you chose those locations?
Well, technically, they're all, the whole course is cleared, and there's been an exchange of, like, revegetated, vegetated areas, which we continually need to demonstrate to the town that we're revegetating the right areas or not. Those areas, we think these are better accessible to emergency vehicles perhaps, or to just access for what's already set up there. And I think they're things that are flexible. Really, when you look at the map of the entire Bridge Golf Course, it's all been cleared at one point, and it's all been revegetated at one point. So it might be shifting and revegetating some other areas if we need to.
right, but typically in these APOD areas, if an area had been cleared, you know, we hope that it will revert to a natural state eventually over
Yeah,
time. So
yeah.
it just, it's really, I think you have to treat this in light of the APOD
Agreed.
regulations and figure out what, if you're allowed any additional clearing. And if not, you know, maybe there could be a, you know, conservation area put on another piece of developable land here that could be a trade-off.
And
You know,
we can demonstrate.
I know
the-
there's a number of undeveloped lots all around here, and the town has acquired a number of them. But,
We can definitely demonstrate the amount of clearing we have and that we're under the regulated clearing area, even without revegetation, which we still do for all these projects anyway.
okay,
So where are we in this app?
We're in the,
application?
you know, him requesting to be in front of you, asking this.
consider?
And then the next step is whether or not you even want to consider it. And then if you do.
does this require a supermajority vote or a three-person vote?
3, and then you would say whether or not you elect to consider it, and then we schedule a public hearing. And then we, you know, do our staff report and you make a decision.
Can I, you know, ask the question, what's in it for the town? Like, you know, normally with a PDD, that's a fair question, like why, yes, we can obviously see how this would benefit Golf at Bridge,
Yeah.
no question about it. What's in it for us? Why should we, maybe higher property taxes, but, are you offering anything that, as a community benefit?
So there are several benefits that the bridge already considers as part of their typical annual use. Three groups in particular that they have annual golf outings and benefits for: Bridgehampton Child Care Center, Bridgehampton Historical Society, Pearson High School. And those range from golf outings 2 times a year to annual fundraising events costing $50,000 to $100,000, all comped, facilities, rounds of golf, beverage, food. Group for the East End is another one. And then there are probably, in upwards over the last 3 years, some 40, 45 rounds that the golf has donated to varying groups in the area as well. And that's certainly something that I know that the bridge is going to continue to.
You're not answering my question.
I
So
get
what
that's-
What you're
that's
saying is.
additional
You're
benefits.
saying that this is what we currently do, which is great, this is terrific. The PDD law was very specific. And this wasn't a PDD, but the PDD law, which no longer exists, we had to weigh that benefit to the community versus the benefit to the applicant. This predated, this is the precursor to the PDD, which also no longer exists. And, typically I wouldn't ask this question, but
That's fair.
because there's really no zoning tools here, we have to sort of create a process, right, an amendment to the code. I think it's a valid question to say, okay, you get it, there's a large benefit that Golf at Bridge gets. Is there anything that the community gets from it? So, maybe it's in the form of expanding those fundraising events. I don't know. Maybe it's some additional preservation around this sensitive area, those types of things. That could be weighed against that benefit.
So if you elect to consider it, then that would be something in their, submission that they would address.
Technical
want.
question, how are you getting power and things to these clusters? Does it pre-exist?
Oh, you already
Yeah,
know.
there's power already on site.
So,
We'd have to run.
To me, one of the things would be looking at sustainable methods of doing that instead of just burying and finding power lines and so forth.
Like solar.
Yeah.
Is your water, do you irrigate with well water? Yeah, you do, right? You do.
There is well water on site.
But then, is there public water there too?
There is public water, yeah, for some of the facilities. I'm not sure how these would be, how would we bring water to these particular,
It might be private well, it might be.
I'm not sure which, depends on how close it is.
Is there a road
There is.
that gets to these things?
Well,
No, not really, you can't bring your car up, you'd be walking to it.
Well, it
Golf
looks
cart.
like you
I,
got
I
one.
I think it'd be a parking space and then a golf cart.
There's a golf cart path I saw here, but that looks drivable, actually.
It is, and that'd be for emergency access too, if we need that. I think all of the facilities would be fully sprinklered, but, we'd have to go.
So you don't see people driving right up to these cottages, they
Don't see it.
park at the
Maybe
clubhouse.
Park
and then they-
remotely and then bring in a
Golf cart.
golf cart likely.
And you would give the fire department a walkthrough on an annual basis?
We'd have to, well, first review this with them, make sure they're
Mhm.
comfortable with the plan, and then, yeah, annual, they come by annually anyway.
Right.
Janice, how does this change the taxes that they pay? Because, golf courses generally pay a lot less, and now we have a housing component to it. Does it increase the taxes?
I don't know, but we can ask Lisa.
Yeah, it certainly should, to some degree. It's similar to Sabonic, really. Sabonic, I think, has some similar type of housing like this, so.
That's what I thought, I thought there was a tax benefit, but
No, yeah, there would be some, certainly there'd be some, it would have to be assessed with the
Golf
fact that
courses
there'd be
are
living
tricky
quarters.
because
Golf courses
it's a
are
whole
real
different
tricky.
formula.
Yeah,
And
there
then
are.
commercial, like a hotel's typically based on a rental income formula that the state approves.
Yeah.
But this one, we don't even know if they're charging any rent, so we'd have to ask Lisa really that question. Is
Yeah, but, right.
how
yeah,
this would
because the
change.
county.
If there's
would want
housing,
some
I would think
income
there
from
would be some change in the assessment.
Yeah, there'll be some
Typical
change.
golf course analysis is on almost like a per round basis, which is kind of, it's challenging for properties that we have here in this town. You know, Bridge, and Shinnecock, and Savannah, those are not, those are very high-end properties, but,
Yeah, the money's sort of in the membership, so,
yeah.
but they do pay yearly as well, so. I don't know if they pay a per round cost.
No, but that's kind of how they, I know the town of Riverhead has challenged it on the traditional links course out there. It's kind of similar to the courses that we have, down here. And, it's a
So,
continuing battle.
Do we, I've been in Symphonic ones, I don't remember how many units they had, and if they had any cooking facilities, or.
No, they don't
They don't
have
have
cooking
cooking, but they
facilities.
have,
And
like-
they're not all built yet, so we've been doing them in pieces. I think maybe 10 are built. They might be entitled to 15, something to that effect.
15, a total of 60 rooms, I think, they're allowed. With
Yeah, the units might be up to,
15 units, 60
that makes
rooms.
sense,
Yeah.
that maybe there's
Four
20
per-
and then
yeah.
3 per unit, yeah. Mhm.
Was there a cap on the number of memberships they could sell as a part of the approval?
It's a
I'm
good
not
question.
aware of that, but we can look into it.
Oh,
We
yeah.
foiled the file and there was like 9 boxes of information that we do not have time to review every bit of it, but if
No,
we,
just-
now
I
that we
guess I'm
understand
wondering
the
if
pertinent
adding
questions.
these
Right.
Residential
We can-
units then open up membership to people who maybe, don't have a home in the area, but would fly in, stay at the golf course, play a few days, leave.
As a supplement to the income to the golf course, you mean?
Right, so that, are they adding memberships to coincide with these 18 units?
Well, the question is, does that bother you? Like, what
Yeah,
difference
right.
does
I
that
don't
make?
know why
And
that
that's their
bothers.
business
18
model. I
rooms,
mean,
right.
Play a
Well,
very
in
expensive
that
skins
kind of range.
game,
Yeah.
bring in
Normally-
guys for a couple days.
Normally, I believe these approvals came with limitations on members. There was a certain magnitude, of course, it's limited by how many people can play. You only have 4
Yeah.
people at a particular hole, right, so you have 18 holes, so.
I don't think that, they have that
In most
issue.
golf courses, I think that if you sell too many memberships, it dilutes the value to the other members.
I think they're all right there.
I think they're, Jay, your
Doesn't get
point,
that kind of play.
the idea for these was to, again, augment or serve the existing membership.
Existing membership, not to create new
It
members.
was, I mean, and
Yeah.
18 rooms, 9 buildings isn't, I mean, it's not a huge number to really increase enrollment in the facility. But
Especially without cooking facilities, and it's really not a hotel room in that sense.
it's the clubhouse is the draw. The clubhouse is the determining factor for the number of members, number of lockers, that sort of thing. These would just be a
I
benefit to
have
this
to though,
existing.
like, I'm trying to be fair in my
Yeah,
analysis here.
fair,
and
yeah.
If you provide overnight lodging for members, you add value to a membership. And it's not cheap to be a member of this place, and, that membership fee, is going to perhaps adjust to the additional amenities that get provided. So there are substantial benefits that accrue to the golf course. So then the question then becomes, again,
Yeah,
what's in it for the
I
community?
understand.
And I think if I'm going to consider this, and I'd like to consider it, is I'd like to hear what the community at large gains from allowing this modification, because we're not obligated to allow the modification. We
Yeah, I
can leave
understand.
things just the way they are. right?
I understand. And I didn't mean that, the list I was giving, I think it was more of a, you're right, it's what the existing, facilities are doing for the community as a whole.
Yeah.
I think there's a history
I'm
of
not
that.
questioning that.
And I see it as an
Golf is
increased
good
fee or
outcome.
an amenity, but the question is fair in
Yeah,
that,
I agree.
I'm kind of curious, you don't have to answer this, but what's driving this? What's the reason behind why the golf club wants to do this? Is this something that's come from its membership, or is that a fair question to ask?
Sure. I think it's fair, but I also think it's fairly self-evident that having lodging would be
Well, I'd like to hear
a
it.
positive thing for them.
Well, like I said, I mean, the drive for this is really to augment and give an additional accessory to the existing members.
Yeah. That makes sense to me, because this is not a great growth. It's certainly not helping the bottom line in that great respect. So, you know, this is something members helps with your membership, helps augment your membership.
But in terms of land use is how you really should be looking at this, and, you know, and that is really the question, is whether or not you want them to have guest accommodations as an accessory to the golf course.
In your analysis, does this alleviate in any way the housing situation that we see in the Noyak, Sag Harbor, Bridgehampton area? In the summertime, it's, you know, in season, you know, it's really pretty packed. The folks that use this course, I believe, are in other places, and I'm not sure what those places
That's a
are.
good
They're probably in
question.
homes or
Yeah.
hotels or whatnot.
I don't have that now. I can,
Okay.
I don't know. That's a good question.
So where do we go from here?
So we would write you a recommendation, you will decide whether or not you want to consider it. In that consideration, then there would be a formal application made, and
So,
we schedule a public hearing.
I'd be happy to consider it, because I think it's fairly low impact, but I would want to know make sure that it's allowable under clearing perspective. I would like to know, have a better understanding of the original Quipsub law, and if there was a balancing act that was supposed to be performed in that law, which I suspect there probably was. And so I would like to see something here in this application that is, works in the community's benefit. Whatever might be offered, whether it's additional fundraising, whether it's additional preserved land, conservation easements, things like that. That would say, okay, if we do this, it's offset by something else, less development in another area.
Okay.
That, to me. And
So Janice, what kind of precedent does this set for the next 9 units that they might want, or?
Good question. Well, they are limited to clearing restrictions, as you mentioned.
We don't know what
and
that is yet,
It
so.
just, you know, the door was left open in the original quip sub that said anything exceeding is subject to future town code amendment approved by you. So
So
you
could
could
we
put a
shut
limit
the-
on that. You could put a
Could we
cap.
shut the door after this?
You can if you
Make
want.
that the cap.
You certainly can.
Well, we can't tie other town boards. But I think it's a very good question, Rick, because
That's why-
there's a lot of other spots you could have picked, and you can, instead of, 18 units, it could have been 180 units.
I think we could tie other town boards in that respect, if they want to make a change to that. I think easing into something is a lot better than going full blast. And this is a pathway to that, so.
How many acres is this whole property?
500.
Yeah, the whole entire property is 500 plus. I think the golf course specifically is 270 in that kind of range.
So you're talking about
516.
a lot of acreage.
281 out
I'm
of
not sure
560.
that I would support saying that
Big.
you can never come back for any other modifications.
You could do the same thing. Any additional accessory would
to go
require
through
future
the
town board
process.
approval, you know,
So you
which
just-
you
yeah.
could say the
You
same
say put the
thing.
limit and then.
Yes.
Or say, you know, a compelling public benefit has to be provided to exceed this number, or, you know, you can
You can.
craft it
You
to
get-
say what you
get
want.
creative here.
Right. I think the future board can analyze that.
Yeah, you could,
I wouldn't want to have the golf course have to waive their right to modifications in the future, because we don't know what the future holds, so.
You can put a limit on today and then just not have any other further language, and then you can, if they want to try to expand it 20 years from now, they can come in and try to expand it then.
Exactly my point.
Right.
Sure, we can, yeah, whatever you want to do is what we can do now.
Well, I mean,
And
today they're
that's-
asking for 18 units.
yes.
in
And they
9
only
buildings.
had 20 with this golf course, 500 acres and a 20
Yeah, the-
lot
yeah,
subdivision.
the
20,
Well,
yeah,
20
20,
homes.
as, yeah, part of the other.
20
subdivision.
lot PRD.
There are 20 lots.
That's, they remember around the.
Yeah, the
last
20
side.
lots plus the 500 Or if 20 lots are part of the 500?
20 lots are part of the 500.
Okay,
And then the
so-
golf course itself is 281.
281.
Plus they're in these
So
little.
now, within that 281 acre golf course, they're looking for these
That's
units?
correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're in these little units with, I hope, good golfers, because they're right in between fairways.
That's why they're bunkered.
Let's talk about that. That's really important, actually. That's,
Yeah.
That's why they have the natural fairway over the top of the
Yeah.
road.
As long as you don't put a flag in, I think you're okay.
It adds to the excitement of staying there.
Yeah, yeah.
Duck. Yeah, I mean, it's not an unreasonable request for a facility this size, but it could open up the door for other golf courses to seek similar approvals.
Yeah.
You know, be it, you know, Atlantic or Shinnecock Hills or
Well, they could do
wherever.
that now too, anyway.
Yeah.
Could they?
Atlantic-
I mean,
does Atlantic
anyway.
have
Okay,
that?
they're mostly,
Atlantic does have
no,
that.
some of them pre-exist and some of them are PDDs.
So PDDs have a way of amending them, you know, we've amended, like, for instance,
Right.
CPI or Kabreski
Right, well,
Airport, like,
if-
we've done
if-
some amendments on
If Sabonic
PDDs.
came in for an amendment, we certainly would be asking the community benefit question, because they were PDD.
Because that was a PDD. This is a QuipSud, so you're trying to apply a PDD standard to a QuipSud. We'll look and see if there was any public benefit component back then.
Right.
But the idea was that it was, you know, it was a use, golf courses were a public use that people wanted back then. People want, instead of the residential density of 500 acres, they wanted a golf course. So don't forget that part. It was considered a good thing.
And it's not necessarily a precedent set from one golf course to another, I find them unique.
There were
in a
plenty,
lot of their-
there was considerable
their
opposition to the creation of a golf course too, back then, but it used to be a racetrack, so.
That's
But
true.
it could have been a large-scale subdivision, I understand that, so. And they have been, I think, good actors in terms of managing pesticides and, you know, nitrogen, fertilizing, and doing community, events.
Compared to the racetrack, it's a much lower impact.
Mhm.
A lot less noisy.
Even the resurgence in the 80s, that when the racetrack was very loud, fuel
Yeah.
tanks.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's kind of a lawless area as a kid.
We used to drive cars in the woods, how long ago that was, fun to do.
All right, so
No
we need to wrap up, so,
Okay.
is there a decision we need to make today?
No.
Whether-
We
whether-
will
We've
have
been
a
presented-
resolution on if you're willing to
Elected to
sponsor it, and then
consider.
you would have to have your colleagues here on the board. Consider it.
I think before I introduce a resolution to consider, I would like to hear if if there are any proposed benefits that,
additional benefits to it,
to the
yeah.
community.
So we'll start our staff report, and then Jake
Because
here will
in my
give us.
mind, although it's
the,
not a PDD, in my mind, I'm sort of treating it like a PDD, because that's the next closest thing I would have.
Understood.
Since the QuipSA doesn't exist anymore, and I would like to see what the QuipSA is, but
Yeah.
a lot of these things were, the QuipSA was replaced by the PDD. And then the PDD was eliminated, but not it still existed for those that were approved under the PDD. So to me, that provides some framework for analyzing it. So
Okay,
I'd like to, if I'm legally able to weigh community benefits, I'd like to do that. So-
great, that sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, just to see the laws in terms of historical, how it evolved, you know, from one to the other, so that we're not missing something here. I think that's part of what you guys are gonna be doing anyway.
Sure, we just like an applicant to be able to propose things before we start saying what it is or isn't, and give them a chance to.
Well, I know
Say
like
what they would
sometimes
like
when
to
we
do.
do like carriage houses and things like that, we make the person go out and extinguish development rights somewhere, even if it's not on their own property. They're able to purchase credits, sanitary credits, density credits from other areas. So, those types of things to say, okay, we're going to, yes, we're getting these 18 units, but,
But you've got 200 acres of residential density
Well,
that could
there's-
have been.
But
yeah,
there is
right.
like a whole,
Yeah,
there
there's a
was
whole
a DES,
analysis.
an FEIS, and it may have been a limitation.
Yeah, we
based
have to go
on
back and
the
look
golf
at
That's what
course
I'm-
generating
exactly.
net nitrogen.
Yeah,
So
well, this is definitely
there's
increases
could have
that,
been,
this
there could have been like a
increases
limit to
sanitary
this.
flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
so-
definitely a health department here,
Yeah.
it's definitely an increase in
No
sanitary
doubt
flow.
about
And they're gonna ask you the same question anyway.
They will.
They will.
You know, I think it's fair, I'm trying not to be unreasonable here, it's just, I think,
We're okay with having them address that. That's all good.
Yeah, you're gonna have to, that's, 512 acres, you're probably okay with that whole point.
so that, you know, that might
That's what
be,
that was my point.
that might be another way to offset it, is to, you know, purchase those, density credits.
Does the bridge still have a relationship with the Sag Harbor School District to assist them in their natural grass field on their property?
Oh, they have actually done that.
Recently?
Yeah, recently. I
They're
believe.
still,
Yeah.
good,
Yeah, the groundskeeper, still involved.
good.
All right, thank you. Okay, so-
All right, thanks all. Thanks for
Thank you.
Thanks. All right.
Thank you, Claire. You're welcome. I'm still here on the agenda next.
Yes, so we're gonna move on to our next topic, let's get Cindy back. And we're gonna
Commercial
move on
vessels,
to
wondering how we got boats out.
regulation of commercial vessels. Folks, I have to leave at around 11:20, so we'll try to go quickly.
Okay, so this was an initiative requested by,
Cindy, you wanna come back in?
oh, sorry.
How is that?
Okay. Anyway.
So, Councilman Scavone asked me to take a look at providing a definition in our code for a commercial vessel, and then looking at its operation in residential marinas. Commercial vessels, we looked, into like New York State law. Commercial vessels are, boats for hire, where they're sort of like party boats, or fishing charters, recreational boats. And they are allowed in RWB, where we would like them to be. And then the question is, in the business use category, so this copy I just gave you is the use chart for residential zones. And if you look, it goes 1 through 10, D, business uses. So these are all the business uses that are allowed in a residential zone, ending with number 10 for solar. You see number 9, by the way, batteries are almost all X, by the way, in residential zones. But 11, we would potentially add operation of commercial or public vessels, except for, sometimes you get these little fishing stations or little sailing sunfish boats, that would be excluded from this. But the reason is that these commercial residential marinas that are existing in residential zones, they are permitted. And I have a map of all of them here, because you may remember we did a little exercise when Mike was here. We were looking to do like marina zoning and things like that, so we did look at this. And so we have these maps, and you can see they're really pretty small for operating commercial vessels in them. So we're not precluding commercial vessels, there's only 3, so you have to share.
And Janice, these were at one point, I already have them, thank you. These were at one point considered pre-existing non-conforming.
Marinas.
Yeah.
They were considered
And we
pre-existing
changed that.
non-conforming, and we changed marinas to P because in the water protection plan, we were afraid that marinas being pre-existing non-conforming would change to condominium, because they go from, this is before you even made that one non-conforming use to another in your realm. But in the ZBA realm, people were coming in and taking these marinas and saying, this is a residential zone, we're more conforming if we build condos here instead of the marina. We didn't want that, right? The idea here is to retain our marinas, water uses, and
So we made only the pre-existing ones permitted,
that's right.
not new ones.
Not
Right.
new ones. That was the M1,
Right.
M2 idea, was to allow for new ones, but then that kind of went south. So
But
we
for
didn't
for
do it.
these were established to service the local community with the
Just
boats
give-
and
Yeah,
and a
he
marina.
has one. If you could pass yours over,
Yeah,
John,
I
and
have
take
to-
that one from time to time.
Here you go.
Got one?
Yeah.
I have the others.
I only made a few
I got it
because,
over there.
yeah.
Thank you.
Does this include, the operations as well, right? I mean, a lot of these small marinas rent boats out to people, they do those kinds of things.
Not, yeah, this
They
is more
provide-
about
This is
fishing
passengers
charters
that buy.
and party boats,
We looked at this one
Okay.
to buy, but see,
But
yeah.
not
where
specifically,
passengers get on a boat in a residential zone,
okay.
go
And-
off and have, you know, a
And there are
sunset cruise
marinas
or
that have a
something.
pre-existing use that's on their C of O to rent out fishing boats or something. And
Or-
this would
Some
not,
marinas are fishing stations.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
this
the-
would
Those
not
are
affect
typically in
that.
RWB, we
Okay,
don't really
right.
have them here, but I did exclude them as Councilman Skibberly
good.
asked me to.
And so the theory is that if they want to expand their business, they should really come to the town and get a change of zone to RWB if it fits in that area,
That's right.
rather than just doing it, you know.
Rather
and-
than just doing these commercial uses in a residential zone, because they're not a marina necessarily.
These are currently all.
These are all the marinas that exist in residential zones today. And the question is, as a business use, do you want them to have like fishing boat charters and party boats and those kinds of things in these marinas?
You know,
The
a
answer,
lot of them still rent, like they rent small boats.
that would
Yeah,
not
that's what we were
be,
just talking about.
we
They
can
could still
fix
do
this
that.
any way you want.
Okay.
But the idea was not to stop that, because that's a marina use,
Yeah.
like some marinas even lease boats, and you can
They have
get
a
a
whole
boat
program,
on your
and then you
own,
go
and
in and out
that's
of
fine. We're talking about
municipalities,
like a large vessel that comes and picks up passengers to either go out on charter fishing or to
Do a
go on a
sunset
party
cruise
boat.
or-
Yeah, those would not be allowed in residential zones. Those are still allowed in RWB. That's like a normal part of an RWB marina. That would be
And that
fine.
would cover the intermunicipal, like, there are some, like, areas in Brookhaven where they rent boats to people, but the people can actually take that boat and overnight it in a participating marina.
That's not
That's all
commercial, that's, I'm talking
I
like
just
a
want to be sure that there's.
Boat
So are we
where
gonna put
lots
like
of
a
people get
size-
on
Are we
it.
gonna put like a size restriction in?
You can. It says any boat of any size for which direct or indirect compensation is received. That's the state definition of a commercial vessel. And so, and then I added party fishing boats, sunset booze cruise, and other recreational offerings for hire shall be considered to be a business use. In other words, you're operating a business in a residential zone. And yes, a marina is a business, but this is an adjunct to that. That's not of the norm that we've ever
Well, I know
really had.
because there's been issues, I know in some of the areas that I'm a liaison to with these small marinas in a residential area, and it does become an issue with when you have the normal vehicle traffic for the boat owners or people coming to rent boats that are in slips there is one thing, but when people start lining the streets to get onto vessels and boats and go out for the day,
That's
and they're
yeah.
not boat owners and they're not, you know.
Right. And
they're
that's
not
what this would
attached to that.
Right,
can
these
release-
marinas weren't necessarily designed for
No,
that.
no,
It's-
and I get that, and
Yeah.
that totally makes
So you're
sense.
trying to
And we
create
support
a-
these marinas and
Yes.
people's access to the resource.
So you're trying to create a difference between a residential marina and a commercial marina, basically.
They're
Because a
commercial.
commercial marina, you have commercial fishermen, who are going out there making their living off these boats, and you're gonna have party boats that go out, you're gonna have charter boats. And yeah, those you expect at commercial marinas. At these
But they also provide gas. to
At
other-
RWB zone
These
marinas.
residential marinas are, in general, homeowners keep their boats. Not everybody has waterfront property, they need a place to keep their boat. They are fundamentally different, but I'm not sure all of these marinas that are now in residential zones are all the same. Some may, like Strong's is, almost a commercial marina.
They're a commercial operation in a residential zone, and marinas are permitted now.
You know,
So
this-
they're not a pre-existing non-conforming use, they're permitted, yes, no problem.
You
The
know,
question is the type of vessel
Vessel,
that is
right.
appearing at these marinas, which requires deep water, which requires people parking on the street, which requires lots of passengers to get on it, is more appropriate in RWB than it is in these marinas. And that's all we're saying here.
What
That's
about-
restricted to where
It's a
car
business
traffic and
use
people are
that is
circulating.
not allowed in these residential zones, if you want to adopt it this way.
And
Which is-
we would just be
else?
clarifying that.
What,
Just, that's it. It can happen in the town, RWB, and if a
And you can
marina.
change to RWB.
Right.
And we would
And if a
probably
marina
say it
wants
wasn't
that,
spot zoning, because most times RWB makes
Like,
sense
well,
on
if,
the
like, if
water.
there was an active restaurant at one of these, or, I don't know if there are.
is it on a vessel?
This is just about commercial vessels.
I know, but
Well,
I'm just
but
saying that it
sometimes they
sort of makes
they
it more
deliver.
commercial in use, or do
But
any
you're,
of these have?
this has nothing to do with commercial marina. We're not saying that at all.
No, but if one of them is zone residential, but they're functioning more as a commercial marina.
But that's back to that
Totally.
M1, M2 thing, the marina and the residential marina and the commercial marina, that we
We've been
didn't go
through.
anywhere with it because most people didn't want that. There was a lot of
I
like,
liked it.
we could bring it
Okay.
back and then we could talk about commercial
Right.
versus residential style marina, which Southold does, and you have, these things are allowed in a residential marina and these things are allowed in a commercial marina.
And
But
this is
absent that-
specific to a vessel coming in and out of a residential marina, a marina
Yes.
that,
This has
whose
to do with the
underlying,
type of boat.
underlying zoning is residential.
Yes.
R10, R20, R30. And we're saying, or I'm saying here that if they want this kind of business, then they need to come to the town and then, get the proper zoning for it. That way they'll have the bathroom amenities, the parking, the neighbors get some say in what happens there.
What about, I mean, I understand the intent, it sounds
Okay.
great, it sounds great. And then let's assume that all these marinas that are zone residential are operating as residential marinas. I still would, sort of like to hear from them how it affects their bottom line and their ability to survive if they're not allowed these uses. And what about anybody who's making their living right now doing what's currently permitted?
Or overlooked.
It's,
Yeah,
it's not
current
permitted
it's just
necessarily, it's
not addressed.
it's not addressed, it comes silent, which is, we have a permissive code, so you technically should say, if it's silent, it means X. So
Right.
here you are putting an
And
X
you
instead.
have, I mean, I know there are situations with some of these marinas where there are very large boats going into bodies of water where they do not belong, and currently our harbor masters have no way to regulate that because we're silent on it. There's nothing for them to write on, there's nothing for them to say, you can't do that here, it's not
But that's a
appropriate.
large boat, that could be a recreational boat, not necessarily a commercial
Mhm.
boat, right?
It
It's just a large boat.
but for the most part, the large boats that are coming into these are not owned by somebody docking it there.
No, they're like the big party boats
Yeah.
that come from the west.
This basically precludes that from happening here at these 18 different marinas.
And tell me, John, that's been a problem. There are a number of
We've
these?
heard a couple things, but,
And it
it's
can't be
really
addressed through just
not
code
any,
enforcement? No?
any
No, it's
specific
been a problem in
area.
my area as well. so
Yeah, it seems to be a burgeoning.
It's getting bigger.
Thing.
Because
And if they want to do it, again, they should get the proper zoning.
It's
These
hard to
residential
enforce,
marinas
though.
were designed for a different purpose, in my view.
No, it isn't, because
Well, I
a
mean,
commercial
Say that
vessel
again,
in
John,
the
I was
state
talking
world
to-
has to have a permit for that, and therefore they would be, having to have that kind of permit is
But, I mean,
indicative
to-
of having that type of operation.
What I'm
So-
talking about is to observe where boats leave from and go from and that kind of thing.
Well, you have the harbor
That's part of the
master,
problem right now, I think, because it happens sort of surreptitiously, and you don't know the origin of that. And then your bay constable's gonna have to find the origin of that boat number, and, so there's an overhead here. I don't think it's much, but I support this, because we've heard this from a lot of our.
you don't have enough parking on
This
site.
is existing, or this is what's proposed?
You see number 11 as underlined, I'm sorry, the X's aren't underlined, but the number 11 is underlined.
So number 11 doesn't currently exist?
No, it does not, and
And
all
you-
those X's would have underlines.
So basically, it would be prohibited in all residential areas.
That's right.
And we're just concerned with
As
parking
proposed
and-
by,
Mhm.
right? And you could
Parking
debate
and
that.
noise.
In residential areas. It's
Yeah.
still allowed in the town in RWB.
Because most of the ones I know, say by Spellman's I don't think has any party boats, but I know Amtiki and some of those other ones come out of, real marinas. They're
Right.
not coming out of residential
Right.
marinas.
Right, and so then that's where they
As
should
they
stay,
should.
and
Right.
that's where they belong.
Would
And
it
this
be-
is memorializing that.
Would it be, and I'm not trying to be difficult here, but would it be better to have it SE and have standards that if they can show that the marina is more commercial in nature, then the planning board could allow it? Or something
But
like
they would then just come and become RWB.
Or, yeah,
where it's allowed.
they could ask for a zone change.
that's what.
Or when we could
I would
still go
like
back
them
to that
do.
marina zoning thing and try to retailer that to
And
make
that's an
sense.
option that we have, but
We just, that's a
currently,
more difficult path than going to a planning board and making your case that we're already a commercial operation and.
They all
Well,
are.
commercial in what
They
way?
all are
And that
commercial
matters.
marinas.
Right,
But
they are
it's the
commercial.
commercial vessel appearing at the marina to pick people up and take them on a charter, or take them to a booze cruise, or take them to wherever they're going, and coming back to this small little commercial marina, where people live right there, that's the problem.
Right, and that marina makes money from that transaction. but they're
yeah.
Not fiduciarily linked, and there's,
It says direct or indirect compensation
Yeah.
is a commercial vessel, so, and that's the state's definition, so that's, we just take that, and then we just added to it saying party fishing boats, sunset booze cruise, and other recreational offerings for hire shall be considered to be a business use. Marinas, their primary business is to dock boats.
Right, no, I get
They're
it.
so
not
I'd like to
business,
put
you
this
know.
forward to a public hearing and, have the public weigh in on this. and-
Yeah, I don't have any objection to that.
Okay.
I can get you
yeah, I
plenty of
think
people
it's,
to come from North
we
Sea.
had this happen once before, right? We had a bunch of marinas.
We were trying to do residential marina standards
Yeah.
and then commercial marina standards, which we
Mhm.
still
I think
can.
started out of North Sea, correct?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
they were
Because
not happy
They
with
weren't
that.
happy
They did
with it,
not
but I
like that.
think, but I think that's another issue where they have, it's a very tight channel that is set up for, regular people to just dock their boats and come and get their boats, and there was bigger boats coming in, and there was more people, and they were parking out on the road, and it became dangerous for parking
It's revenue,
situations.
it's an opportunity of
Yeah.
revenue. and-
This, just to be clear, wouldn't necessarily negate a larger boat being docked there. It's the
No,
commercial
yes, but what I'm
part of
saying
it,
is those
yeah.
larger boats were coming in with a lot more people getting on
Oh,
them,
then
and
that's different, yeah.
Yeah,
But if the boat was not owned by that marina, it was a deal to use a slip as a landing to put passengers on it, I could see where it can become complicated to enforce in that regard. So they have to be, the language has to be very straightforward. And we've talked about this before, and I think most marina owners are gonna come back and say, well, we do make money this way, and that's gonna be the point of contention. So
Okay.
Well,
it'd be
that's,
interesting to hear.
yeah.
We've heard this.
And there are some that will come in and say, no, we don't want to be doing
Don't
this,
want-
and we
yeah,
don't want
right.
others doing, I mean, it just,
There
it's
is
a neighborhood
business- There is a
marina.
business model now that's growing where people can purchase into like a boat or a group of boats, or like a membership. And
boating club.
You get a captain,
That's
you
fine.
know, but that really just shouldn't preclude that.
No.
No, but they have arrangements with other marinas where they can put the slip in, but I don't think this is
We
effective.
can tighten up the
Yeah,
definition
because
to
not
mean
everybody
what
can
you
afford a
want.
boat, and so
We
people
were
are like
looking at-
actually
Yeah.
purchasing boats.
I was looking at doing that with our marinas and opening a couple slots to a boating club where they actually train people how to drive the boats and do it
Yeah.
safely, and
Yeah,
they
that's
would rent
not,
them, like, it was like a,
Well, these clubs actually, they provide a captain for you, but you.
Yeah,
you
well-
sort
oh,
of-
the one that we
Sometimes
were
they do,
looking at, they
sometimes-
take you out and you have to do serious training.
And they can do
Like
that.
Silly Lily, I think,
Yes,
is a place
so
that
that's,
does that.
that's the exact model we
Yeah.
were looking at.
So this would also exempt lawfully existing fishing station boats and sailing schools. And that's kind of the predominant use, or commercial use,
It's
in
not like-
addition to the slips that we have.
It's not like they don't make money on docking.
Right.
Dock fees are outrageous, so
But
if
they
you're
also
not making
provide-
money docking boats.
If
I
you
don't know what
wanna
you're
have
It's
doing
a-
not just
wrong.
boats, though,
charter.
they provide gas
Yes.
to
No, I like
vehicles,
this.
feed,
the
and
way
all
it
the
is.
rest
We'll
of
work on
that
this, and
stuff.
this is what I intend to put forward. I think
okay,
it'd be
so
good.
I can put it on
Yeah.
for,
I think
okay.
so.
Yeah,
Great.
I-
And the legislative
we should have
intent
a
is to
public
not
hearing.
have a large commercial boating use
In
in a
residential
residential
area.
marina.
Right.
Okay,
And there is still a path. They can apply for RWB, and, the board will consider it, and, we
Okay.
have our processes there.
great.
Okay.
So my last one is another one from Councilman Scavone. Here you go. Oh, sorry.
Have you heard of China? Like a small cruise line going along, hitting the South Harbor?
Cruise line.
I have heard of cruise ship, yeah. I've read about that in the paper.
I read that this.
Um, This is about just, was a good question that Councilman Scavone brought up to me, was that our zoning for transfer stations and community facilities are not consistent with, they're residentially zoned or zoned for open space when they're like transfer stations.
Right.
And so the question here, and this doesn't show all our holdings, this is, just
This is
those
for
places.
municipal transportation?
Yeah, municipal
Yes. This is
transfer
private ones, yeah.
stations and our municipal buildings. Well, this one that we're in right now is in the village, so that doesn't matter. But like, say, the transfer station in Hampton Bays, which we're thinking of putting that sewage treatment system on, the transfer station in West Hampton, the transfer station here in North Sea, the one in Sag Harbor, they're all zoned he was saying, why can't we just zone it like municipal? And I thought, that's a good idea. I mean, that's easy. So I just thought, just bring it to you, and this is a super simple one, but I think that the councilman is right. These zoning designations are not consistent with what's happening there.
Uh-huh.
Our
So-
properties are non-conforming.
Our
our
they
own
make
code.
our properties
So,
non-conforming.
My experience, at least having been supervisor of a different town, is that if it's a town project, it's exempt from zoning. We tend to put everything through the planning board. In East Hampton, we didn't necessarily do that. But, in Southampton, we've had this practice of trying to work within zoning. But I think the law exempts us, just the way schools are exempt from zoning. The towns are exempt from zoning too. You can disagree, but that's been my experience.
Existing, I would agree with that, for existing uses.
Right. So, but
Generally,
but
what
it-
you always have to be bound to is secret.
Yeah, of course, but we don't have to subject ourselves to the planning board. We don't have, but we have been doing that.
Yeah, there's that
As a
test,
matter of-
it used to be
9-part test.
proprietary versus governmental, the test was, and then in the Orangeburg case took more, now it's more like a 5
You know,
test.
A 9-part test, I thought was the
Yeah,
latest,
yeah.
yeah.
Nonetheless, if we are gonna go, I like Tommy John's idea, just say, so that we're not criticized, saying, oh, you're in a residential zone here. Yeah, make it just municipal.
We just create a category called municipal and just
Interesting, I don't know.
rezone
That's it.
those
Have other towns,
maps.
I'm trying to think of other towns zone their.
I don't know, but like, it's sort of weird. So I thought, this is just one of those map amendment things we can do fairly easily. And that way
What
it's,
happens if we have an applicant that wants to use part of these properties, say municipal, property transfer station, and we have to, it's almost a form of protection having that zoning in place, right?
no, because you are the landlord. You don't have to
Yeah,
allow
but-
You mean
any
like a
applicant to
solar
do
array
That
or
anything.
sounds, that
something?
sounds great, but in practice, it
No,
doesn't
when
always.
the town owns the property, you have full control over it.
But
And
we
you
do
may go
sometimes
out to
lease-
bid, like you did with the North Sea landfill. The North Sea landfill
Right,
is
but
zoned open
we
space,
also-
which
The
makes no
municipal
sense.
zoning be like the overlay, and then
Yeah.
if we were ever gonna use, like, Councilman Bouvier is saying, if we were ever gonna use a municipal portion of some property for non-municipal purposes, like if we can lease it out for private purposes, maybe would have to comply with the underlying current zoning.
We can do, this is just one of those like anomaly things, we can talk about that. and
This would
say-
make that easier.
You could say
in my view.
municipal, for any municipal purpose that the town board deems
Mhm.
appropriate.
No, I just think it needs
Yeah.
to be part of the, part of, you learn by having the problems, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
That's one problem that we faced a lot, is particularly in trying to lease properties for
Yeah.
particular uses, commercial,
Yeah.
sustainability.
These days,
and
I
that
would
kind
say
of thing.
solar, right?
Yeah,
Solar is something
solar
that
arrays
all
are
municipalities are
taken. I mean,
doing. They're leasing-
Well, but it's not just that,
No,
it's
no, but that's a
biochar
good
and all
example.
the rest of it, so.
Well, we can just call it muni and then we can work on the
Yeah,
language
I just
to
asked
allow
a
for
baseline
that.
legal question because it is a broad zone change, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're adding in all these little pockets and sometimes like one piece of property in a residential zone will now be zoned differently as municipal use. Do we have to do some kind of like review and secret? Do we
Oh,
have to
yeah.
go to the planning commission?
Oh, yeah.
Could they override it? Could it be seen as spot zoning because a little piece is now municipal? It's a zone change.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, we definitely would have to do secret, of course.
You have to go through the process of a zone
I
change.
mean, of
We
course, you have
would,
to make
yeah,
a-
you
make a
would be
determination.
remapping these parcels
Be
to
GIS.
be whatever you want to call that, to reflect the fact that they're municipal property, not residential. They're never gonna be residential. Nobody's ever gonna
but we
live on these
also have,
properties.
we have mixed use
The
of
transfer
those
stations and the
properties.
landfills and
Like
stuff.
highway department, like municipal waste,
What
it's
about-
sort of a shared use and benefit. Just wanna make sure that there's no,
What if we surplus the property?
Within the municipality.
Like, you know, what if we own the piece with, you know, Bel Air could have fallen in that category, now it's gonna stay municipal. But that piece was purchased with the intent of reselling it. Are
When
there
it comes to
any-
CPF though, I don't think we're worried about, this is all just like literally things that we have municipal and we can add to this map, like highway department or, you know, transfer stations, like things that are municipal, these are public use, public benefit, we're doing this for the public, we're taking your trash where, you know, we're
Well,
doing
that's to say,
something.
Maybe, you know, we'd revert back to the underlying zoning, in your example, Mr. Supervisor. If we were gonna surplus that piece, then it's subject to the, if it was residential and we zoned it municipal.
Well, if you were to surplus it,
underlying
you could
zoning still-
rezone it at that point,
You could do
and you
overlay.
could just do it.
Right. Well, this would be
It,
the overlay.
it wasn't meant to be very complicated.
No, Jim, is
So,
is
whenever you do something
alienation
simple, it
practices,
gets very
is that part of surplusing property? It's not part of,
Well, if it's parks, yeah, then you have, certainly if it's a parks property, then that's where alien. or
The parks
public,
and
trust doctrine
CPF
would
would
have
to-
not
Are
even
not
be part of
Right.
this.
Has part of
Has this ever, has not having this or having it the way it is ever caused a conflict? or
Well, it
problem?
may, if you wanna put that STP at the transfer station in Hampton Bays, it could potentially cause a problem, and the other one is the North Sea one. These are
What
deemed
could
open
cause-
space
Can
when
we
there's
just
municipal
rename- Can we
transfer
just rezone
stations.
those as like transfer station
You
properties?
could, you can call them transfer stations instead of
Janice, if
OSC.
we do this, we could use it as an STP, right? We could
You could
cite
place-
STP with
Yeah,
the
at
proper.
transfer stations, which has been an objective
so it
of
would be
yours.
easier
if it
to do
meets
those
the
things.
geographic,
Yes,
geological.
yes.
Right, it would be easier
do
to
those things
cite an STP at the Hampton Bays Transfer Station with this in place.
with it zoned from either
Municipal.
called transfer or
Right,
municipal,
whatever.
whatever you wanna call it,
Municipal use.
and
I'm just saying, instead of
allow
doing
it.
all of the properties, if we wanted to just start with the transfer state sites.
Well, that's why we have on this map only 4.
Yeah.
There's only 4 that we're talking about.
Oh,
And
really?
you-
I thought you were
yeah.
doing all of them.
No, they're right here on this map I gave you. 1, 2,
Yeah, that makes sense.
3, 4. There's 4 properties that we're discussing. 4 transfer stations. And I'm saying if you could put a municipal zoning category on them instead of what they were currently zoned for open space, but they're not operating as open space,
No,
they're,
for some
they're
reason,
literally
I thought
transfer
you wanted to
stations.
zone everything
That's
that
what I
we
thought
own.
too.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, no.
Yeah.
Well, I thought the map was,
So-
No, I just thought that
So
was
you
just
want to
pointing
take
those
the
out. what you
transfer
were saying.
stations and zone them transfer stations?
yes,
Yeah, it's fine.
Fine.
great. I was gonna say, this wasn't supposed to be hard, this is so easy.
I think we were making it way more complicated than it actually was.
Never mind, as Gilda
Like
Radner,
alienating it and what?
as Gilda Radner used to say.
Okay, great, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Sure,
I think that's.
okay,
I'll
I'll
be right
see you
back.
next time, thank you.
All right, when you're here on Star Aquatics, I got like 10 minutes, and then I have to leave. at
Well, we're all
10:30.
staying.
So come, bring them in, and let's get this show on the road here.
We are all staying.
They'll wait for you. You can come in hot, don't worry.
Huh?
Just come in.
Yeah, just don't eat.
Yeah. What, they're not gonna start without you,
Simple as
Jay.
Applebee's, just don't eat. The first half an hour is the eating.
Yeah, yeah.
Understandable.
Hello. Got some new faces here.
I ran that
All right, some familiar faces
I just
as well.
felt
Dr.
Didn't
Joe,
matter, I was damn quick.
where are you?
No.
So, just give us one moment to get
Just never-
Councilman Scavone back. Folks, I'm gonna have to leave fairly early here, so I'm gonna hand the meeting over to my deputy, Frank Sapone. I have to be in West Hampton
Well, we
for
went for Tommy John.
something for Southampton Press.
Yeah, okay, great.
But I can stay for, well, not very long, about 5 minutes.
We'll try and be as brief as we can.
It's all great, thanks a lot.
But I promised to watch the video of it, so I'll know exactly what that said, so. Why don't we get started in light of the fact that I have to leave? As everyone knows, we have set aside a piece of property out on, is it the E? It used to be the IPHL site, that we have reserved it for the future use of an indoor aquatic center to the Star Foundation. And I think we set the property aside for a 3-year period, and from 2020 at some point we'll probably have to extend that. We just wanted to sort of make sure things were moving along, and fundraising was moving along, and planning was moving along. So I see we have Tim Rumpf from RS Designs, and Wayne is here, and Dr. Josephine DiVincenzi is here from Star Aquatic Center, and I see you brought a crew as well. So who's gonna lead this off?
Start us off. Can
Yeah.
I sit here, or you want me to go to the podium?
Why don't you go
All right.
over to the podium, and forgive me if I speak out while you're speaking, or one of you are speaking.
I'm used to being interrupted. So, thank you for giving me the opportunity to, once again, talk about one of my favorite subjects. It's near and dear to my heart. The mission of STAR, is, as you all know, is to enhance the overall wellness and water safety of our coastal community by building an indoor pool and fitness facility, our Star Aqua Center. And we've worked for many, many years to make this dream a reality. But the need is still unmet, and I might add, in this post-pandemic time that we live in, maybe the need has never been greater. I think we don't have to look very far to see how much stress and loneliness and anxiety are in our society. This center will be more than just teaching swimming. It'll be a place for people to come together. And so the work must go on. We want to give you, first of all, as our partners, a warm and sincere thank you for your attendance at events, at community breakfasts. I know you've openly expressed support for this project, and we count on that. In particular, you're dedicating a home for this site at the McGee Street property that you did, again, dedicate CPF funds to purchase. And that property, which, as an environmentalist, of an already disturbed site, in the location that it's in, adjacent to other commercial properties, with enough land, which other sites that we had contemplated didn't have, will enable us to do a great job in making this facility aesthetically and environmentally pleasing. I'm here today with other members of the board, Sean Crowley, Sue Rumpf, and Jill Rayner, and our support staff, Elin Rumpf, Tim Rumpf, and our attorney, Wayne Bruin.
It's a Rumpf family affair here.
It is a family affair, and this is a small community, and we are fortunate to have such families as that Rumpf family to be involved with so many beautiful things that have happened in this community. We've given you the package. You can see the pretty pictures. It represents a lot of work and that Tim has done and Tony Panzer have done, and our facility planning committee. Unfortunately, Terry, who chairs that, couldn't be here today, but they've struggled about making this facility big enough, but to accommodate the needs, but small enough to be as effective and efficient for a sustainable facility. We've included the renderings in your packet, but they're here if you
Can I
have
just
questions.
show, 'cause I'm
Sure.
about to head out. When it's the draw, I just looked at the packet. It looks beautiful. So it would be an amazing facility to have here in the heart of our community. Give kids a chance to learn how to swim before they jump in the ocean, and all the benefits we've articulated in the past. Just quickly, how are you doing fundraising?
Well, we'll jump right to that. As of this
Dive
year,
right in?
okay.
Jump right in.
We've raised $7 million. We have other commitments that are about to be realized by the end of the year. We've received over 495 donations of varying sizes from well over 300 different individuals. We plan to raise the balance of the monies that are due, with partly the exciting news that after many years, we finally have a capital campaign chair who has stepped forward, and we are pleased to announce that Charles Manger is going to assist us in raising the balance of the funds.
Oh, great.
So-
When do you envision having enough money to break ground?
Well, it's interesting that we've always tried to stay on a parallel course of starting the planning process and the fundraising simultaneously. It's our hope that we will raise the balance of the 25 by 25, but realistically, I'd say 2 years. We now feel, with the changes that we've made in leadership and with the assistance of Mr. Manger, that we are ready, willing, and very able now, I think, to pursue the people that we've already identified, Jay. But as you know,
Is that what you think is the $25 million project?
well, we just received an updated pro forma, and like everything else, the inflationary costs have risen to the point where we tried to bring this project in under 20. It's looking now like the range is somewhere between 26 and 31.
And Josephine, the question about breaking ground has been complicated by the subdivision
Yeah.
aspect of this property, and I think it would be appropriate for the board to be updated on that as well,
Well-
after you're done with your presentation.
I'm going to just turn that over to our attorney, who's been involved with this for a long time.
Okay, so.
Because there are a number
Don't
of
take this
donors that are
personally,
looking.
Wayne. I'm gonna scoot out, but
Okay.
I will get filled in by my deputy, very capable Frank Sapone. So Frank, do you wanna step forward and chair the meeting? Thank you all.
Thank you, Jay.
I wish I could stay.
Break away.
So, good morning, board members. First of all, 3 years ago, this board adopted a resolution for a commitment, and it was a dual commitment. The town board would take steps to investigate and determine what would be the viability and the feasibility of utilizing the site, and everything that you need to do to allow this project to go forward. On the other hand, you just heard the commitment on the part of STAR, fundraising and other things. I was retained a few months ago because some of the development aspects in developing the plan. And the first thing I noticed was, actually, there's a commitment, but there is no real commitment on either side of the table that anybody would move forward in any particular way. And so usually what the next step in such a thing would be an actual agreement, perhaps a license agreement that says STAR is going to undertake and do these things in the end. Nothing unlike what you have with SYS. You actually have an agreement going forward in construction. So my thought was, is here we have a not-for-profit, and when I got involved, I noticed that they've expended a large amount of funds, but really don't have the commitment on this side of the table that eventually this could come to fruition. So I said, wait a minute, let's just take a time out and figure out where we are. And the first thing I realized is the site. What was happening, among the things that STAR did was they actually went to the planning board with a proposed plan, and the planning board held a public hearing, had a pre-application, pre-submission report for the site plan, and gave the STAR, very helpful input. The property, though, and you'll see the map here, this is, Tim did a rendition of what was a lot line modification that preceded the town's acquisition of this property. If you recall, this property here, this is the North Highway, County Road 39, McGee Street. The property in yellow is what the town owns. The property in green was part of this property at some time, and this is what the property that's the Southampton Motel, and this is the Zucchero property. These sites were all part of the King Cullen proposal that was before the town board. A company called Southampton Ventures owned this property. Among the partners of that was Mr. Morrow, who was part and parcel of who was brought in by King Cullen to help that project. And when that was not going forward, he approached the town and asked if they wanted to buy the property. If you remember, this was the site of the IGHL. The town said that they would proceed. It required Mr. Morrow to demolish the IGHL building, which he did. And the town proceeded and purchased the property. However, the planners advised the town board that this is all zoned highway business and that all good planning would be to try to minimize access on the highway, in particular at this location, and always have this access to go out to the light. So the planners advised the town board that we would like to keep this available for access for all these properties and only buy this for CPF. So the contract between the town and Southampton Ventures was subject to a lot line modification where this green parcel, which looks like a right-of-way, provided a connection to this property, but this would be merged with the hotel property. Start with 2 lots, end with 2 lots. That transfer of property was approved, and nonetheless, before it was finalized with the health department and all the things that were needed, covenants, things of that sort with the planning board, the town and Southampton Ventures closed. Town ended up with title to this, and thereafter, among other things, Southampton Ventures never completed anything they were required to do for the transfer of property, including health department approval and various documents for the planning board. One of the things, and I represented Southampton Ventures, it was Mr. Morrow at that time, but shortly after that closing, Mr. Morrow withdrew from Southampton Ventures, and despite my reaching out to the partners for at least 3 years afterwards as to when you're going to do what's necessary to complete, nothing ever got accomplished. So the problem, and as far as the town was concerned, this was going to be open space. You're never going to develop it. Why would you need to follow through, you know? And he would, if they ever tried to do anything on this property, they would probably have been thwarted by the health department. Well, lo and behold, here we are years later, and we actually decide to develop this for recreational purposes. And so Star goes to the planning board. The first thing the planning board says, we showed them a plan. We had frontage on McGee Street with access. The planning board said, no, we want you to have the access over the green. The shared access makes sense. The second thing is we try to get to the health department. The health department says, just like every process, if your property has been subdivided and they don't have a record of approval, they will not give you approval for your project. And so we were thwarted. And for several months, actually years now, we've been trying to reach out, and more so myself in the last few months, to reach out to the principals of Southampton Ventures. And actually, we're happy to say 2 days ago, the principal of Southampton Ventures actually signed the application for the health department approval. And I think Jay just signed that application today also. And so we're able to at least get that application in to get the lot line transfer approved. That would then enable them to review the application for this. But again, here we are making applications, spending a lot of money with surveyors, engineers, attorneys, and there's no formal agreement. And so all I'm suggesting is, one of the things we'd like is that resolution was a 3-year commitment, which expires soon, this month. And we'd like the town board to further that commitment. I believe we're in the same place. but also have some thought and direct the town attorneys. And I've already had a meeting and discussed the next step, which would be an agreement similar to SYS, but starting from square one to whatever is necessary to get the facility open, so we have some formality that actually allows us to be making these applications and doing this work on behalf of the town and so on. So that's one aspect, and but the other impediment we had also with this is, since this was always contemplated as open space, the planning board, no one, they contemplated access for the commercial property, but not this property. So technically, we also need an easement from them, and actually, we drafted that with assistance from the town attorney's office, and we sent that to Southampton Ventures. We're waiting for that to occur. So that has actually been an impediment, but I think we're seeing some light at the end of the tunnel. But, so that's part of what's been transpiring over the last 3 years. So you can see there's been a lot of effort and a lot of money already spent by the not-for-profit. And I think that we have a good team now to get this done. And the fundraising, one of the other things I just want to point out, my experience, I just helped another not-for-profit in Riverhead, Beconic Hockey, who built a hockey rink in partnership with the town of Riverhead, which, if you're familiar with them, they're having their rink is in, they're finished, they're going to have their grand opening in a couple of weeks.
Nice.
So the town of Riverhead is very excited about that aspect. But my experience with that was, with the fundraising, we have some nice pictures, but we need to know, that people need to know the project is closer to a reality. So things like a site plan approval from the town, planning board, having the commitment, the agreement, or things, fundraisers are gonna say, wait a minute, this is more reality, I'm gonna commit to this and provide that fundraising.
So Wayne, having a nebulous situation like this, a non-finalized subdivision, you think that would inhibit fundraising?
I think partially because right now, we have all we have is the resolution with a 3-year commitment, and we were done. So if I was given $1 million, I'm like, but you don't have any agreement. How do I know this is going to happen? So we need to get some more steps. I think it would help fundraising tremendously. This is my opinion, so.
Unquestionably, Mr. Manger, who attended the planning meeting.
You need to get up there, otherwise we can't record you. Thanks.
I'll speak to that and tell you that Charles Manger basically told us until we got this resolved, he couldn't, in good conscience, go forward with end-of-year asks or doing any effort on our behalf. And I'm about to tell you some more great news, that we won this $500,000 grant from the New York State Regional Economic Development Committee, and we can't even take the money down from the grant without this being finalized.
Right.
We were told by them that we need this done, and we can't get the release, and this is a planning grant. So we would love to start drawing down that money, couldn't do that either. So clearly, and I'll say that our wonderful anchor donors stipulations require a building permit for the final transfer of those funds. So everything is contingent upon us getting this done. And we really would appreciate, and Jim met with us and the team met to try to move this forward. We've got to get this done by the end of the year, please.
What is the grant stipulation, Josephine, as far as, what do you need for that, to realize that grant?
Specific question?
Well, one of the things, we give them a plan, and we actually, as per the planning board, you'll see it in the package, shows access over the Southampton Ventures. If you look at the first, the second page, you'll see the development, the access road actually extends onto that. And one of the stipulations was, please provide us with the instrument that shows you have the right to cross somebody else's property. And that's not in place at the moment.
Long term, is given any thought of making that a town road after it gets improved?
I think the planning board designed it, that's why it's a 50-foot right-of-way. It
Yeah.
could become that.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily, because it's commercial property, and this is a typical thing where you have commercial property and there'll be cross-access and the
Yeah.
like.
But it's
Certainly.
serving that, but it's also serving that, it's gonna be a significant recreational amenity for the town. so,
Yeah, absolutely.
That makes sense.
It'll be shared. I mean, certainly,
Right.
if this property ever gets developed, undoubtedly, the DPW and the planning board, that's why it was designed, that to have access that way. I think it would benefit this restaurant and the hotel that's there to have an access where people don't have to go out and make a left-hand turn, they can come out to the light. So it's certainly beneficial to Southampton Ventures to proceed, and that's what we're trying to emphasize, proceed because they will, at our expense, get a paved right-of-way that will assist in access.
Signature of the health department, that's a big one. Yeah.
That's
I know
very
I've been
big.
working with Tim for a long time, I'm trying to get that. So then I was speaking with Tim yesterday and we talked about, we can try to expedite it. I'm certainly more than willing to reach out to the folks in the health department that I know and set up a pre-submission meeting now. And with Walter Dewittiak
That would be terrific.
and
Thank
Ray
you, Jim.
Knepper and John Sargent and all those folks. So, yeah, Walter, yeah, he's very good.
So considering this unresolved issue and the fact that there was a world pandemic between when we started this thing and now, I certainly would favor an extension, in our current agreement and work from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we had a proposed agreement, and it was, we can finalize something. That's not an impediment to the.
Okay.
Jim, I think we should go back and look at that proposed agreement.
Oh, yeah,
Some
yeah.
things have changed here, and they need to be reflected.
Right,
in
sure,
that.
yeah.
Otherwise, we're just agreeing to agree the next time.
Yeah.
The only thing I know is that every day we don't put a shovel in the ground, the project gets more expensive to
you.
build. So,
My flippers are waiting.
So, as our partners, we would appreciate anything and everything you could do to help this move forward. We're excited about our new leadership and our support from the community, and we're confident that with that and with this out of the way, with our new capital campaign chair, with our board's continued commitment, and with you as partners, we can get this done. So if you have any other questions.
No, but I certainly appreciate your tenacity on this. Really,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
I don't know if you'd like me to, you want to go through the package? They're all pretty self-explanatory if you'd like, or I know you've got a lot of work to do.
I think a lot of us, I think maybe all of us were at the
The last,
the
The
breakfast
last.
where we went through the whole.
great, perfect, great.
Thanks.
Good to
I
have.
think we're good, and
Thank you.
I'm certainly, my sense, and I know how I feel, but my sense is we all want this to happen. So if this is a roadblock, I think we can fix this fairly easily. We're all of this like mind. That's my feeling.
Can I ask, do you anticipate applying for any future grant opportunities that might be?
We will leave no stone unturned, trust me.
Well, just to emphasize, the town has been in this situation that you're in now, where we get a grant as a town that wants to build something on property owned by some other municipality. In our case, it was the county. And in order to access that grant, we did have to have some kind of in this case, it was an IMA. So it's not an unusual protocol to have to overcome that obstacle. We've had to do it, and I would imagine that, and it was the same agency, the EDC, I think it was. They haven't changed their rules. If anything, they've made them more rigid than they were before.
Well, Frank, as I said, we will leave no stone
Yeah.
unturned. We're looking at private, public, state, local, federal. We're going to look everywhere we can. And I just want to say that the fact that this outside objective competitive grant was won by the project reinforces that this will be an economic boon to the town. And our new updated numbers showed that the town could foresee somewhere in the vicinity of $5.5 million of monies coming to the town from this work in the next 5 years. Now, it's a benefit to everyone, both financially while John's here, I also know that we share deeply the environmental issues. We did also spend some money because we felt it very important that we look at the feasibility of doing every possible cutting-edge technology to make this not only economically more feasible, but environmentally the best that it can be. So we continue to do the work, and we're very pleased that we have your continued support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Any other questions from the board?
No?
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Thank you, Janice.
Now to everybody's favorite part, council. I don't have any updates. Does anybody?
No.
Any
I have
council
none.
member updates? Okay, then I would ask for a motion to adjourn into executive session.
Second.
I need the motion first, I can't make it.
Oh,
All right, Rick,
and I'll
the
second.
motion, seconded by John. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned until executive session at 12:30. 12:30. That's what it says on my list.
So we have a break. We can go right in. I don't.
Well, let me
Yeah,
just
it's
check if
Sunday,
we
it's-
have-